samyuktam nityam jayanti yoginaha kamadam mokshadam chaiva om karaya namo namaha. Om karaya namo namaha. Kalyani.
I guess some of the things that I was sharing with you are just these moments of impatience or frustration that arise for one reason or another, and then they get a toehold. And then if awareness doesn't come in quickly enough, that they can really get entrenched and everything starts to be viewed through this like judgment, impatience, frustration without even realizing it. And it just like seeps into my bones. And that, and then this remembering of like, oh, we have a practice. Like I'm doing a practice. I'm here engaged in this. I'm engaging with life purposefully and not wanting to just be swept along by all these old patterns, and how to ensure that interruption of the old patterns happens as quickly as possible and maybe has to happen less and less. And I think the piece that's coming up for me right now is that, again, back to this idea of to soften and allow and accept things as how they are, because it's how they are, and that is the truth. And whatever desire I have or preconceived notion I have is not the truth. And when I don't do that, that I've stopped the flow of the story and I've stopped the flow of life, really, and I'm just entrenched in this one particular moment and am defining all experience by this one moment and how things are right now, rather than allowing it to continue to move on, in addition to just loving it as it is. And yeah, it really was more of a noticing and a reflection. And I feel like there is most certainly, and I guess maybe the question that I would form is that why are these old patterns still at all attractive when they're so painful? Whereas when the letting go is such a relief, when the allowing is such a relief, and allowing myself to love and allowing myself to be loved feels so much better. And yet that's not what I always choose to do.
And thank you also for having shared that with me. It was a really profound contemplation, reflection that you shared, and it was just, somebody came along and annoyed you. It happens to us all the time. And then you saw your annoyance as the problem. And then your contemplation of it, your inquiry of it was really very subtle and profound. And so thank you. Well, this recognition actually, that's implied in the question, which is why do we cling to our suffering? Because fundamentally this is the clinging. It's what is that? Why is that? It's a very good question, and I think exploration of this can be illuminating to us of the pattern, in order that we might be able to free ourselves of the pattern. So you have a moment of peace and contentment, and then somebody comes along to insert something sour, huh? And then there's the recognition in and of itself, it isn't sour at all. It's only my response to it that is sour. And you know, by now most of us are in the internal emotional maturity to not react outwardly to people. This is its own victory, because this is already fairly rare in the world to not react compulsively, violently. And so, and that, of course, is the very thing that's required in order to begin to see the patterns of one's own self in relationship to the world. You know, fundamentally, the cause of all suffering is the reaction, not this. Not this, we could say, is non-acceptance. It's a judgment. Even it would call it an evaluation, probably. Or even a discernment, it might call it a discernment, but the discernment actually isn't at all. It actually is a judgment that says not this. And not this means this isn't enough, expresses itself as desire. So not this in the form of desire, and not this in the form of aversion, rejection. Yeah. Not this is is not just not this is not simply external, it's also internal. This frustration directed at one's own self. Also suffering. Everything that's happening inside of you and outside of you is interpreted through the lens of the past, through the function of what's called memory. We know this. Let's just explore, you know, the opposite of this, which would be a total amnesia. No memory. Don't know your own name. An amnesia, but let's not make it a problem, you know? There's just, you awaken as an amnesiac into an isness. It has no names, you have no expectations. There would be no basis for fear other than not knowing, but this isn't a problem because you've never known knowing. You see? And so this is to juxtapose what it is to be interpreting the world through the function of memory, which actually is to be living in the past. And so memory, in fact, is identity, isn't it? If you're in a moment become a total amnesiac, somebody asks you, who are you? And without any problem, you might say either I couldn't say, you could say I don't rightly know, huh? Yeah. You would it would be clear to you. It doesn't take any intellect at all. It would be immediately obvious that I am. How could I not be? Because I'm here. Huh? So you could say I am, but don't hear that in the way that we've heard I am so many times. I am that I am, blah, blah, blah. Now it becomes a concept. Be in that, experientially in your own self right now. Total amnesiac. Who are you? Well, I couldn't say. Huh. I don't rightly know. Huh. I am. That one might even giggle and says, Piers, you are also. But we don't really, this isn't our experience, is it? Because everything means something, doesn't it? Everything references something past. Huh? Even I hear your voice. I know this is Kalyani. I see your face, Kalyani. Huh? Huh? I have no idea. Truly, I have no idea who you are because, the last time I've seen you, so much has changed for me. Yeah, please.
Just, oh yeah, thank you. It's like that's the ultimate question that you're spending all this time contemplating, that of like wanting to get to the true answer of that, of like, yes, you're Nataraj, yes, I'm Kalyani, but also like who really are you? And that like this idea of what if somebody's like, hey, I'm such and so, who are you? And it's like, I couldn't say, and that's not really a way to function in the world, but it is the most like truthful of answers, is that we really don't know, and neither do they. We have these stories that are layered on, that have been given to us and that we've accumulated, and um, like that little octopus who gathers up all the shells and holds them around her and like is hiding in plain sight. Um, and that's like the accumulation of all of our experiences and ideas about who we are. But it's not really who we are. Like all those things will fall away, and then what's left behind, and that's just, I hadn't approached it from the sense of being an amnesiac, and that's okay. Like forgetting everything, and that's okay. And then having a little bit more space to really look at who am I without all of those things, without carrying around all of those things.
Yes, it's perfect. And so I present it this way to start with the truth, and then we can begin to look at, right? Because it may click for somebody, and then they can just log off and be done with satsang. It can happen. The great teachings always start with tattvamasi, you are that, and then if that lights the fire that that is the end of the questioner or the student, then it's done. Well, typically that isn't the way, but but anyway, it sets the stage for the inquiry. It creates the vast latitude and longitude for us to explore what is memory, and what is identity, and why do I cling to suffering. So let's play with this a little bit. Keep this amnesiac at the center of your heart, and as we inquire, to look from there insofar as this is possible for each of you. So the identity that bears your name is really very simply an amalgamation of memories. The corporate self. You have incorporated all of your memories, and this I that you call yourself is actually in reference to past. It's a constellation of thoughts orbiting thoughts, affirmed through emotion, which actually is resentment, beyond the connotation of resentment, which has a negative connotation. It is to re-feel, and we are in a constant state of re-feeling our past through the function of memory into past. It's almost like from the now, the mind is like a time machine, always traveling to the past. And so, this is not a bad thing. It gives us a place in the world, a way to relate to the world, a way to, a personality is born and evolves from this, and sense of family and friendship and beautiful things. Part of past is also nostalgia and remembrance of acts of great generosity, great love and compassion. And so in this resentment, there is a joy exists in the inner space of the rememberer. But you know how it is when you begin to become forgetful. You can't remember somebody's name that's really loving to you. It's disturbing, isn't it? Or can't remember a cherished memory, or a loved one passes away and you can no longer recall their face, the fullness that you once were able to. So, we have grief around these things, and memories are also beautiful, aren't they? And sometimes quite horrible. Quite horrible. And but it's really the foundation of what you think yourself to be. Who you think you are is what you think. Who do you think you are? Well, it's what I think, of course. How could it be otherwise? We become so familiar with these phrases, we don't actually dive into what does it mean. Who do you think you are? Because if you think that you're that, who's observing the thought? Not you? Will the real Kalyani please stand up? Yes. You have to look between your legs and then loop around yourself. Who do you think you are? Where do your thoughts come from? So this identity is tied into memory. And so to move into the unknown, thinking you are past, to move into an unknown future would seem akin to some kind of suicide. It's a death of the... And so this is why we tend to create a future that is derivative of past. It's more comfortable to move into things that seem familiar, and what is familiar is past. You see? Are you with me? And so this future that gives us a sense of comfort and familiarity is past. Future is past. The future that the mind will lead you toward is past. Mind is past, can't go anywhere else. Can't. It's reflective, you see. It's an instrument of reflection. It's incapable of forward-looking, actually. What it calls forward-looking is backward-looking that it calls future. Like I remember giggling one time thinking that, my whole life I've been driving a car looking in the rearview mirror, but the rearview mirror was up so close that I didn't have any perspective of, I became quite an accomplished backwards driver, to the degree that driving forwards became a little strange. So mind is past. Thought, what you know is past. You can't know it otherwise. What you know refers to past. Do you see it? I call you Kalyani. That's because some years ago, we introduced each other, yes? Yeah. And from henceforth, I call you Kalyani. But that name, even uttering the name, refers to that moment. Past. Let's explore this just a little bit more. I want you to see how actually it is in the DNA of the identity. So you go home to visit your parents, or your parents come to London to visit you. You are, in your mother's mind, you are still at her breast. You still fell off your bike. And we have this sense. When you share a past, share a memory with somebody, isn't there this sense that really, are you ever really seen and known by them? Don't you have the sense when you go home to your family, they haven't the foggiest idea who you are? Huh? And then we seem to somehow revert back into the old identities based on the constellation of, the gravities of these memories, their memory and our memory. Memory, it's all memory. But somehow has a grip on this now. Let me tell you how absolutely ingrained this is into the Maya, to the duality. And we were exploring it this way recently, that memory is actually gravity. They're the same. The memory of the moon focused on the earth is what keeps it in orbit. We call it gravity. It's in orbit around earth. The memory of earth is its orbit around the sun. And the memory of the sun is in orbit around the black hole at the center of our galaxy. The memory of our galaxy, you see? The memory of the identity is the gravity of the past. Looping. So it's in the system, and your mind and your body, your emotions, all of it is tied to the moon and the planets and the sun, isn't it? That's why people do their horoscopes. Trying to navigate through the world through astrology and tarot and all of these sorts of things. It's fine. So the past is always pulling, this memory is always pulling it. It gives you the very sense of who it is that you think you are. But just like the moon orbiting the earth, the moon has a velocity, doesn't it? That's born of the gravity. But it has a velocity. And so there is centripetal force and centrifugal force. Isn't that how we kind of played with it the other day? I hadn't really thought of it this way so much before, but it's this way. It's this way in the mind and the body, the emotions, everything. It is this way. So the moon is constantly at the peak of escape velocity and gravity. Right? Always on the edge of that. If the moon turned its attention from Earth to sun, gone. Huh? The mind turns its attention from the world to God. It's a little turbulent at first, just like a space shuttle trying to free itself from the gravity of Earth. So much force required. Turbulent. Dangerous. Moon is mind. And in addition to its orbit around the Earth, and Earth's orbit around the sun, it also bears only the reflected light of the sun. And a full moon at night will illuminate the Earth, won't it? But it isn't the light of the moon. This light is borrowed from the sun. You see? Mind is like this also. It isn't your thought. It doesn't belong to you. It's reflecting off of the craters of the mirror of your mind the impressions, the imprints of all of the asteroids and comets that have hit it over the years. The man on the moon. I've never really thought about it this way. It's really quite comical. So this light is not only reflected, but it's also, very slightly, we don't notice it, do we? But it's slightly modified by the fluctuations of moon. The light of the mind is this way. You call it my thought, and no such thing actually exists. It doesn't belong to you. It's borrowed. It's the borrowed light of the sun. In fact, what you call my conscience, my consciousness, also borrowed. It actually doesn't belong to you. The you that you think you are is in reference to a body and a mind, which themselves are simply instruments. It's like a telescope taking credit for discovering a star. Each one, we come to see this, and then, well, laughter and love begin. So I keep setting up the juxtaposition. Just to say, it's not such a big deal to release your identity, to release your memory. You will be so happy. You will be so happy. But the reason why it's so hard is that it feels akin to suicide. It feels like death. It feels like the edge of non-existence, worse even than death. Death is a playground compared to non-existence. The terror of that I could go out. So the mind that is reflecting the light of the sun, that creates what you call me and my life. Your sense of me and my life is in this way is why it's called a dream or an illusion or maya or even lila, a dance, an improvisational dance. Well, while we're identified in mind, it's very well choreographed. Like puppets on the end of strings, not so much in charge. Pretending it's free will because it seems like I'm the doer. It's not this way, actually. Actually, the constant reference of mind on past, or my constant reference to mind, which is past, this actually feels like free will, but it isn't. There is some free will in it, there's some choice in it, but by and large, we're pulled along by our vāsanā, a deep ocean current that we don't even know we're in. Much like, without knowledge of the sun and orbit, you wouldn't know how quickly you're moving in this moment. You think you're sitting still. I think the sun itself is going something like 270,000 kilometers a minute or second, I don't remember, fast. And so we are hurtling through space while we're sitting still on this Zoom, and we have no concept of it. This is the karma. This is the vāsanā, the conditioning. You could no more jump off of Earth in this moment to be free of its conditioning. But luckily, the body belongs to Earth in this way. You do not. You don't. You actually don't belong to earth. In a very sacred and beautiful relationship with it. But you belong to you. You belong to the light that reflects on the earth and that reflects through you and casts a shadow of you on the earth. And then lost in this mind that is borrowed, reflected light of the past, we now are, our whole identity is referencing past. The now moment is always, we're always superimposing past on it. And what it is that we say it is only a reference to what we know it was. And we never really experience now because of this. Heaven is spread out on earth, but man cannot see it. Consuming the past, we don't know what is now. What is past is dead. And one focused in past, this isn't life actually. This isn't the life of light. This is the life of birth and death, of shadow and light. The play is no problem. It's actually quite beautiful. But to be identified in it, then this gives rise to our experience of suffering. Fear. Let me say it this way. Sheer terror. Yes? Yeah. So this is why it's so hard to move from reaction to pause to responsiveness, is because it's completely, it's completely ingrained in us, because we are interpreting everything that happens outside of us and everything that happens inside of us with reference to past. Never now. So I remember asking some months ago, truly, when will you allow it to be now for you? When will you give yourself the permission to just release the past? Withdraw your infatuation of thought and opinion. Because it won't be until then that you live in now, that you experience life in now. And in this one, I have lived in past, lived in shadow and light. This is better. And nothing was lost. Nothing is lost. So much seems apparently gained, not the least of which is just I can relax. I never once had any, excuse me, I never once had any influence on the world. I only ever had influence on my experience of the world. It seems outrageous to say. It's absolutely true. Unequivocally true. The world exists as it is only in your mind's eye. You make it what it is. And even, even in this new age spirituality where people are busy creating and co-creating, they haven't the foggiest idea what they're co-creating with. You've always been co-creating, When Jesus said you are creators, he didn't say you will be one day when you wake up. No, it's always happening. And you are creating, always creating, have always been creating in collaboration with your unseen partner, your conditioning, past. And of course, with the mercy and grace of God, subconscious, maybe we could say, and superconscious. I don't know. I use the words loosely. I don't know. And always in a collaboration. So, first, resign from opinions. You cherish what you think so much and don't realize it's always leading you back into suffering. Follow any thought and belief of it, and you will see it leads you back to suffering. Maybe at first it's something pleasant or wonderful, but this is a revolving door. Exit the room, right back in. every desire is a boomerang. So just, gently practice withdrawing your infatuation with your thoughts. Gently wonder, what will it be like when I'm no longer mesmerized by the shadow play in my own mind? And stop creating. Resign. Let it be as it is. This is the fast way. Let it be what it is. Let it be as it is. Leave the past to the past. Stop relitigating what happened to you over and over. It's done. It's over. You're not suffering that abuse anymore. You're not suffering that neglect anymore. It's not here. And so we withdraw our attention. We see how we were fully engaged with a mirage of mind and looping in it. And so you stop creating. Come into a vigilant, conscious awareness of the barrage of desires coming through your heart and mind. Observe them with a great deal of compassion, a great deal of self-love, and a total neutrality, meaning don't touch. Then gradually, the momentum of the world, the momentum of your mind, it will begin to dissipate. And gradually, taking much more time than you would prefer, no doubt, it will come back into an equilibrium. The moment you move, you touch desire, that's the accelerator of you and the world. And the moment you move into aversion, not this, it's also the accelerator and keeps you and the world revolving around each other, past, looping. So attraction and aversion, fueled by habits of past, keep us in samsara, in suffering. This feels like suicide. It's very difficult. Try to, somebody says something that you absolutely know, and they say it and they say something so wrong. And they say it in front of a whole group of really gullible people. Try keeping your mouth shut. You'll see how difficult this is. So addicted to I'm right. So much sense of security and safety in the familiar. Huh? But the familiar is past. Huh? There cannot be safety there. There's no such thing. It is false refuge. You see? Whistling in the dark. No. There is no safety in familiarity. And in truth, there is no fear in the unknown. But this is how it is for us, and we must be daring, courageous, reckless even, to resign from the game of debate, of opinion. And then things will begin slowly to clarify. Slowly, you will begin to experience what is now. And truly, on the other side of your terror, when you finally let go to your absolute clutch, clinging to past, on the other side of that terror, there is bliss. On the other side of that bliss, no strategy for happiness is required. No strategy for survival is required. It happens of its own accord in a divine perfection. But you are now witness and witness and proof of that perfection. It isn't conceptual. And then there's the bliss, which is unearned, unmerited. It is not the result of any experience. It isn't something that you manage to claim out of existence or dig deep into you to find. No. It is your perfume. It's sort of your eye sense is this happiness. I am happiness. And in reflection, back on past, because you still have access to the mind, you see. In reflection, you would say, I was never that. It was never how I thought it to be. I was never what I thought I was. And all of the struggle even, all of the trying, all of the sadhana, necessary but totally unnecessary. And you see how there's an increasingly faint memory of what it is to be caught up in the Maya, to be identified as the subject in a world of objects. It begins to fade, but you still have a memory. It may not be an emotional memory, it may not be resentment, but there's a memory that evokes a sense of deep compassion and a great desire to want to love people more and more, to the degree that they can receive it anyway. You shouldn't want to force feed anybody. This really is the sort of the experience behind our motto, which is all are welcome and none are obliged. So all of this, the withdrawing from memory, withdrawing from reaction, withdrawing from I know, withdrawing from I'm right, it's suicide. It's akin to the feeling of suicide. This is to die before you die, as they say. But it's not some quaint aphorism of like spiritual accomplishment. It isn't an accomplishment at all. And never hear it like you've heard it before. Like hear something and say, oh yes, I've heard that, I know that. No. This isn't it. you can loop in that memory endlessly and pretending to be happy when really there's still that desperation at the clinging at the core. So, prayer. What place does prayer have in all of this? Because in each one of us, as powerful as the habit of identifying with the mind reflecting on past is our desire to be free. So powerful. Every desire you've ever had is for freedom. Every aversion you have ever had is against limitation. I assure you, when you really dig deeply and look into this, you will see that your very nature is to fight, to beg, borrow, and steal in order to obtain your freedom. And we just misunderstand the construct of what we call reality. Caught in it, we can't see it for what it is. You see. But now we all are coming to the place of beginning to see, nothing happening here, but my reflections. So prayer, coming to see the root, the seed of the predicament. It was like this for me. Let me just share from a personal history. Sitting on my couch, day in, day out for years in meditation, every chance I could get, came to recognize that as sharp as my intellect could be, I couldn't cut through the intellect. That every revelation introduced another subject-object relationship. Every revelation gave rise to another problem for me to solve and navigate through, and I just saw it became so subtle. It became very mystical also. And I saw every mystical experience was no different than any ordinary experience I'd ever had. It was just more subtle. But as soon as I identified as a subject in it, I was looping again. And so experience itself became the thing. Thought and the experience that followed became the very thing, and I could not free myself of it. Any more than I could jump off of the earth to free myself of its gravity. Any more that I could pull myself up by my bootstraps. There's a reason for this. I'll share it with you ahead of time, which is that the me that wanted to be free wasn't real. What power did it have at all? None. The only thing I had in my disposal was in cause and effect as a subject where only brute force was to make some influence on this subject-object, this Maya, this duality. Great effort. But you see, no effort would bear any fruit here because it was the fundamental mistake of my thought and my identity were so closely aligned, there was no escape from that. A knife cannot cut a knife. And knowing this was not helpful at all either, because I just knew it. To know it isn't enough. Even by a really astute inference, paying close attention, And so prayer. So prayer. And the prayer was, Lord, it was actually directed to my Guru Muji. Lord, take my mind. Of myself, I am completely unable to free myself of it. And I am tortured in a tight loop of like two stars about to go supernova. In a tight loop. I couldn't escape it. And I was desperate. And so I called into the deepest place I could find in my heart. A place where the ache was so great and the desperation was all consuming. And the humility was so profound. And I called out, please, please take my mind. Please relieve me of the bondage of self. Almost weeping, moaning, desperate, you know? And it wasn't something mustered. It just was. It was so sincere. And from the depths of my heart, I prayed from here. And this is prayer. This is collecting all the desires I'd ever had in all of time. My desire for this and that. All of my worldly desires, all of my spiritual desires, and I brought them all into the cave of my heart and summoned all of them for one call. Lord, please free me. In a sense of the total desperation of, I cannot do this. I have tried over and over and over. And to be honest, I think after this moment, I was, by the way, very much on my knees and sobbing, alone, alone. I think I forgot about it the next day. And about 3 days later, it was extremely painful. I won't go into the details of it. It was extremely painful. But our prayers are answered. Our prayers from the depth of our humility and our sincerity are answered. And really, this final traverse, I mean, it's not final at all, is it? That's a bit too poetic, I think. But this big traverse can only happen through the grace of God. One cannot free themselves because it's now so clear I was the one that was the bondage. The I that called out was the one that had to go. This one also called itself Peter. and when I see my mother in August, she will see that one. And I will oblige her to a degree, as a compassion. So understand, this isn't about me. In a way, it couldn't really be. but but this is also the story of you. It's a certainty. Increasingly, I'll tell you honestly, I see the you that is before all of this anyway, or after all of this, whichever way you want to say it. Increasingly, we see the world even with our two eyes in its reality. That truly, there's nothing happening here but God. So find this place in your heart, so that when you hit that impasse, you know where to call from. In the prayer of prayers. And so first, let's just sort of outline it a little bit in a way that I think if you can be in your heart and hear this in your own voice from your heart, hear my voice as your voice in your own tone from your heart, which is that when you cease to cherish your thoughts and your opinions, you will come to the place of not hiding, of not pretending, of total surrender, without negotiation. Total surrender. Bearing yourself completely, an inner nakedness that before God, the fig leaves are removed. Here I am, Lord, as I am, exactly as I am. Not hiding everything I have done. Here I am, Lord. Everything I have failed to do. This not hiding, this surrender, is the total radical willingness to be seen. Totally exposed. No corner of your history. Every corner exposed to the light. In this total willingness to see, you will be seen. You will be seen. And whatever discomfort you might have in that being seen, you also allow that to be seen. You hold nothing back. When this is complete, you will be seen, and in that very moment, you will see. You will come to see that what you see is the seer. And you behold. Behold. You see the seer. You are seen by the seer. What was many now becomes two. Seer and seen. Seer and seen. It's the first echo, the first duality. And you've come back through time to this just by your willingness to be seen. Total surrender. All of a sudden, the seen also is seeing. So you have seer and seer, as seer and seen. Now, the two the seer now sees itself in the seen. This is the experience that Jesus says, my Father and I are one. And now the seer alone remains. And the seer is. The seer alone is. As is. As is. This has so many meanings. The seer is, as isness. And as is, unchanging. Oh my goodness. So when you come to really an intimate experience of the predicament of mind, you come with this prayer and you come with exactly as you are, in a total willingness to be seen. Lord, please help. Please come. I have no power. I've tried everything. And then this is what follows. This will feel like death. Every step along the way, it feels like death. And you simply surrender the terror into the experience itself. You let it course through you. And you see, I think the only reason that this is being shared is because so many are really on the precipice of this. And I think these things are helpful to know so that you, not my words, but there's something in you that will refer to a trust, a faith. And there's this is and isn't the result of your spiritual practices. This isn't merit-based. This isn't available to you and not anyone else because they haven't been dedicating the last 10 years of their life or 40 years of their life to spiritual pursuits. There is never any place for anything called spiritual arrogance. It's always available to you. Now. So, when you let go of the past, when you withdraw your attention from your thoughts and your opinions and your beliefs about you and about the world, are you happier?
Yes.
By how much? Ah, she says. Ah.
Infinitely.
As you uncling, as you untouch your past, now you mustn't turn back. You will. So learn how to untouch. Learn how to withdraw from the scene. Learn how to detach. And take it in earnest. Your happiness is at stake. A happiness that that always exceeds one's wildest imagination. This isn't something for next lifetime, and this isn't something for tomorrow. This isn't something that you prepare for. You place yourself in that posture, and then you wait, because the timing doesn't belong to you. And you simply cultivate and test your sincerity. Am I sincere? Am I sincere? How do I know I'm sincere? I know I'm sincere by what I say. I know I'm sincere by what I do. I know my thoughts are sincere because I will give them my tongue. I know my tongue is sincere because I will give it my hands. You know your sincerity by your deeds, by your actions. You do not know sincerity by your words, and you certainly don't know it by your thoughts. When you put yourself to the task aligned with your want of wants, and you, in doing that, you will see how much you don't want to. And then you will come through this service, this surrender into service, karma yoga. This is how you expose your own insincerity, not to feel guilty or ashamed, but to see, more to release. Just like you did so beautifully, Kalyani, with your reflections and how you handled this young man on the farm that day. Mastery, absolute mastery. Home. So, Sam, so beautifully when we spoke yesterday, asked to discuss prayer and to pray together. And so, mostly, we pray from the depth of our heart for the want of wants, that it be fulfilled. From your own heart and your own words, it might sound something like, Lord, here I am. fully. I bear before you my entire being. And I beg you, please take all of me. With everything I am, I want that you have all of me. I beg you, relieve me of this bondage of I. I give my whole self. I give it back. Please come. Please take me from me. Oh, adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. Thou art Satchit Ananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal, non-judgmental vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Free our hearts from egoism, lust, greed, hatred, anger, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms, and let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. is true that one can pray and have invite tremendous intercession, invite mercy and grace. And it's also true that when many pray together, if one can have an impact on 1,000, two can have an impact on 10,000, and three, 1,000,000. And 10, infinite. So know that together we've sent a great echo into the collective infinity. And doesn't it feel nice to do? The one who prays for the liberation of others, this one will soon be free. This is true. This is true. So you pray for mine, I'll pray for yours. See you in heaven. Thank you, thank you. Love you, love you. Oh, by the way, I watched a Muji satsang the other day, and I need to confess, I'm an absolute plagiarist. At the end, he says, same. I was like, oh, that comes from Muji. I guess we all end up looking like Dad. Looking and sounded like Papa. Baba. What's it say?
There is no Nataraj here, only Mujiji.
Yes. It's the strangest thing. Wonderful. And as far as Nataraj goes, good riddance. That's also plagiarized. Okay. Om, om, om. Love you, love you, love you. Give, love, serve. Give, love, serve. This truly is the way.